Sarah Chen had always been a fighter. From her struggling childhood in a cramped two-bedroom apartment to graduating top of her class at business school, she'd clawed her way up through sheer determination. Now, at 32, she was the senior marketing manager at Velocity Corp, just one rung below the director position she'd dreamed about for 3 years. "You're obsessing again," her husband Michael said softly, watching her pace their living room at midnight still in her work clothes. He sat on their cream sofa, his kind eyes filled with concern. They'd been married for 5 years, and he knew her patterns too well. "The board announces the new marketing director next month, Mike. This is everything I've worked for." Sarah's fingers drummed against her phone case, a nervous habit she'd developed. "Richard told me I'm the top candidate." Michael's jaw tightened at the mention of Richard Blackwood, Sarah's boss. "That man makes my skin crawl. The way he looks at you at company events, don't start this again," Sarah cut him off, exhaustion sharpening her tone. "Richard appreciates talent. He's been mentoring me because he sees potential." "Mentoring?" Michael stood up, frustration breaking through his usually calm demeanor. "Sarah, he touches your shoulder constantly. He finds excuses to keep you late. Last month at the quarterly dinner, he literally put his hand on your knee under the table. I was sitting right there." Sarah waved dismissively. "You're being paranoid. That's just how people operate in corporate environments. Networking, building relationships. That's not networking. That's predatory behavior, and you know it." Michael moved closer, taking her hands. "Baby, I love your ambition. It's one of the reasons I fell for you, but you're letting him cross boundaries that make you uncomfortable. I can see it in your face when he does it." Sarah pulled her hands away, her defenses rising like walls. "I can handle Richard. I've handled worse. Do you know how many men I've had to navigate around to get where I am? This promotion will change everything for us. Director-level salary means we can finally buy that house we want, start thinking about kids." "I don't care about the house," Michael said quietly. "I care about you, about us. This job is changing you, Sarah. You come home later and later. You snap at me over nothing. And now you're defending a man who's clearly manipulating you." The argument escalated, voices rising in the quiet apartment until Sarah grabbed her laptop bag and stormed into their bedroom, slamming the door. She sat on the edge of their bed, her hands shaking, telling herself Michael just didn't understand. He worked as a graphic designer at a small firm, comfortable, creative, but without the cutthroat pressure she faced daily. He couldn't comprehend what it took to survive in her world. The next morning, tension hung between them like fog. Michael made coffee in silence while Sarah prepared for the annual company gala that evening, the event where Richard had hinted he'd make important announcements about the promotion. "You're really going through with this," Michael said, not quite a question. "It's my job, Michael. I have to be there." Sarah adjusted her earrings in the hallway mirror, avoiding his reflection. She'd chosen a black cocktail dress, professional but elegant. Or was it? A small voice whispered doubt, but she silenced it. "I'm going with you," Michael announced firmly. Sarah spun around. "What? Why?" "Because I'm your husband, and because I don't trust Richard Blackwood." His tone left no room for argument. "If this is such an innocent professional event, there's no reason I can't attend." The invitation said, "+one's welcome." Sarah wanted to protest, but she couldn't find a legitimate reason to refuse. Deep down, beneath layers of ambition and denial, part of her was relieved. Part of her was terrified of being alone with Richard when alcohol flowed and inhibitions lowered. "Fine," she said curtly. "But please don't embarrass me." Michael's expression softened with hurt. "When have I ever embarrassed you, Sarah?" She had no answer. They drove to the gala in heavy silence, neither knowing that by evening's end their marriage would stand on a precipice, and Sarah would face a choice that would haunt her for the rest of her life. The ballroom glittered with ambition and expensive champagne. The Grandview Hotel ballroom sparkled with crystal chandeliers and the practiced laughter of corporate climbers. Sarah moved through the crowd with Michael at her side, champagne flute in hand, greeting colleagues and executives with the perfect blend of professionalism and charm she'd perfected over the years. "Sarah, there you are." Richard Blackwood's voice cut through the ambient noise. He was 53, silver-haired, with the kind of commanding presence that made junior employees instinctively straighten their postures. He approached with arms, slightly extended, pulling Sarah into a hug that lasted 2 seconds too long. "You look absolutely stunning tonight." "Thank you, Richard." Sarah stepped back quickly, gesturing toward Michael. "You remember my husband, Michael." "Of course, Marcus, right?" Richard extended his hand with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Michael." Her husband corrected, his grip firm, his smile polite but cold. "Right, Michael. My apologies." Richard's attention immediately returned to Sarah. "I need to borrow your brilliant wife for a few minutes. Board members are here, and I want them to see what exceptional talent we're about to promote." His hand landed on Sarah's lower back, guiding her away. Sarah glanced back at Michael, whose expression had darkened. She mouthed, "5 minutes," and let herself be led through the crowd toward a group of executives near the bar. The next hour blurred into introductions and strategic conversations. Sarah was in her element, discussing quarterly projections and market expansion strategies with board members who would decide her fate. Richard remained close, his presence hovering like a shadow, his hand finding reasons to touch her arm, her shoulder, the small of her back. Each touch lasted slightly longer than professional, slightly more intimate than necessary. "Excuse me." Michael's voice interrupted a conversation about digital marketing trends. He'd appeared at Sarah's elbow, his jaw tight. "Sarah, can I talk to you for a moment?" "I'm in the middle of—" "Now," Michael said, his tone leaving no room for negotiation. Sarah excused herself, following Michael to a quieter corner near the grand windows overlooking the city. "What are you doing?" she hissed. "I was talking to Margaret Townsend from the board." "What am I doing?" "Sarah, I've been watching him paw at you for an hour like you're his property. Every time I look over, his hands are on you. You're laughing at his jokes, letting him whisper in your ear. I'm networking, this is my job." "That's not networking, that's—" Michael stopped, taking a deep breath, trying to control his anger. "You're letting him touch you in ways I wouldn't let another man touch you. And you don't even seem to notice anymore. Or worse, you've convinced yourself it's normal." "You're being jealous and controlling," Sarah shot back, her voice rising. "This is the biggest night of my career and you're making a scene. I'm being your husband, the one person in this room who actually cares about you as a person, not as a rung on a corporate ladder." Michael's voice cracked with frustration. "Sarah, please, let's just go home. This isn't worth it." "Not worth it?" Sarah's eyes blazed. "This promotion is worth a $100,000 raise. It's worth the respect I've earned. It's worth everything I've sacrificed to get here. And if you can't support me, then maybe you should go home alone." The words hung in the air between them, sharp as broken glass. Michael's face went pale, hurt flooding his features. "Is that really what you want?" Before Sarah could answer, before she could take back the words she didn't mean, Richard appeared, his timing impeccable and predatory. "Everything all right here? Sarah, they're about to make the announcements. You need to be center stage." His hand slid around her waist possessively. Sarah saw Michael's expression shift from hurt to disgust. She felt Richard's hand on her hip, too low, too familiar. For one crystalline moment, she saw herself through her husband's eyes, a woman so desperate for validation that she'd allowed herself to become someone else's accessory. But the moment passed. Ambition drowned out conscience. "I'm fine," Sarah said, stepping closer to Richard, away from Michael. Michael was just leaving. "Sarah," Michael's voice broke. "I'll be home later," she said coldly, not meeting his eyes. Michael stood there for a long moment, his silence more damning than any words. Then he turned and walked away, his shoulders squared with painful dignity. Sarah watched him go, something twisting in her chest, but Richard was already guiding her back toward the center of the ballroom. "Don't worry about him," Richard murmured, his breath warm against her ear. "Some people just can't handle success. They want to keep you small." His fingers tightened on her waist. "But not me. I see your potential, Sarah. All of it." The announcement came 30 minutes later. Sarah Chen, promoted to marketing director. The room applauded. Sarah smiled, accepted, Congratulations posed for photos with Richard's arm around her shoulders. She searched the crowd for Michael, wanting to share this triumph, but he was gone. Richard leaned in close during the photo session, his lips nearly brushing her ear. You've earned this, Sarah. Now we celebrate properly. My suite, 20th floor. Just us. We have so much to discuss about your new role. Sarah's stomach turned cold. Richard, I should get home to my husband. His hand tightened painfully on her arm, his smile never wavering for the cameras. Sarah, you're a smart woman. You understand how these things work. This promotion comes with expectations. Don't disappoint me now. The ballroom suddenly felt suffocating. Sarah finally understood the trap she'd walked into. The price tag attached to her ambition. But she'd already paid the deposit with her husband's trust. Sarah sat in her car in the hotel parking garage for 20 minutes. Engine running. Hands gripping the steering wheel until her knuckles turned white. Her phone showed 3 missed calls from Michael and 1 text, "Please come home. We need to talk." Her reflection in the rearview mirror showed a stranger, makeup perfect, dress immaculate, eyes hollow. Richard's words echoed in her mind. "My sweet, we need to discuss your new role." The implication had been crystal clear, wrapped in corporate doublespeak and predatory confidence. She should drive home. She should run to Michael, confess everything. Let him hold her while she cried about her stupidity and naivete. But the title sang in her veins like a drug. Marketing director. Everything she'd sacrificed for, finally within reach. Could she really throw it away now? Sarah's phone buzzed. "Richard. Sarah, I'm waiting. Don't make me regret my decision." Room 2047, her hand shook. She thought about her mother, who'd cleaned houses for wealthy families, who'd told Sarah to be smarter, to use her brain to escape their circumstances. She thought about every condescending male colleague she'd outlasted, every glass ceiling she'd cracked. This promotion was supposed to be her vindication, proof that hard work mattered more than gender or connections. But this wasn't hard work. This was extortion. Sarah typed back, "I can't, I'm going home to my husband." She almost hit send. Her finger hovered over the button. Then she thought about Monday morning, walking into the office without the promotion, whispers following her about being difficult or not a team player. Richard would make sure she never advanced again. She'd seen him do it to others who refused to play his games. Delete. Retype. Give me 10 minutes. Sarah walked through the hotel lobby like a woman heading to her execution. The elevator ride to the 20th floor lasted an eternity. She knocked on room 2047 with her heart hammering against her ribs. Richard opened the door in shirt sleeves, tie loosened, whiskey glass in hand. Smart choice. "Come in." The suite was obscenely luxurious. Floor-to-ceiling windows, king bed visible through an open doorway, leather sofas arranged around a glass coffee table. Richard gestured to the bar. "Drink?" "No, thank you." Sarah remained near the door, arms crossed. "Richard, I appreciate the promotion, but I'm not comfortable." "Comfortable?" Richard laughed, setting down his glass. "Sarah, you've been comfortable with my attention for 3 years. Every late meeting, every business dinner, every time you laughed at my jokes and let me touch your arm. You knew where this was heading. That was professional mentorship. Don't insult my intelligence." Richard moved closer, backing her against the wall. "We had an understanding. I advanced your career and you showed appropriate gratitude. Now you're director level, Sarah. Do you know how many qualified candidates I passed over to choose you? You owe me." Sarah's throat constricted. She could smell his cologne, see the predatory gleam in his eyes. "I don't owe you anything. I earned this position through my work." "Your work?" Richard's hand pressed against the wall beside her head. "Your work is competent at best. There are a dozen people in that company who could do your job. I chose you because I wanted you, and you let me believe that desire was mutual. I never," Sarah's voice came out strangled, "I never led you on. I was professional. You were complicit." Richard's other hand reached for her waist. "Every time you didn't pull away, every time you smiled and let me touch you, you said yes. Your husband saw it tonight. That's why he left." Tears burned Sarah's eyes. Michael's hurt expression flashed in her memory. She'd been so blind, so willfully ignorant of what she was allowing. "Please, Richard. I want to go home." "Then go." Richard stepped back suddenly, returning to his whiskey. "Go home to your wounded husband. And Monday morning, clean out your desk. I'll tell the board you couldn't handle the pressure of the new position. I'll make sure every company in this industry knows you're unreliable, unprofessional. Your career will be over." Sarah stood frozen, her mind racing through options that didn't exist. If she left, she lost everything she'd worked for. If she stayed, Richard continued smoothly, "You stay for one drink. We talk. Maybe I was too forward, maybe we just need to clear the air about expectations. 5 minutes, Sarah, then you can leave, keep your promotion, and we'll pretend this uncomfortable moment never happened. Your choice, it was a lie." Sarah knew it was a lie, but she also knew Richard held all the power, the promotion, her reputation, her future. She thought about the house she and Michael had looked at last month, the family they'd planned, the life that director salary could provide. She thought about Michael waiting at home, trusting her despite his suspicions, loving her despite her flaws. 5 minutes, she told herself. Just survive 5 minutes, then leave. "One drink," Sarah heard herself say. "Then I'm going home." Richard smiled like a shark. "Of course. Just one drink." An hour later, Sarah drove home with tears streaming down her face, her dress wrinkled, her lips swollen from forced kisses she'd eventually stopped resisting. She hadn't gone as far as Richard wanted. She'd drawn a line he'd reluctantly respected when she'd broken down crying. But she'd crossed enough lines to destroy her marriage, enough to lose herself. The apartment was dark when she arrived. Michael sat on the couch in the dim light from the window, still dressed in his suit, waiting. "Where were you?" His voice was flat, emotionless. "Meeting with Richard, discussing the new role." The lies came automatically now. "For 2 hours? After midnight?" Michael stood up. "Sarah, please. Don't lie to me." "Not now." Sarah couldn't meet Michael's eyes. In the dim light of their living room, she felt exposed, as if her guilt was written across her skin in marks only he could see. Her hands trembled as she set down her purse carefully, deliberately, buying seconds before she had to speak. "It was just a work meeting," she whispered, but the words sounded hollow even to her own ears. Michael laughed, a broken, bitter sound she'd never heard from him before. "A work meeting. At midnight. In a hotel." He took a step closer, and she could see his eyes were red-rimmed, whether from anger or tears, she couldn't tell. "Do you know what the worst part is? It's not even the lying. It's that you think I'm stupid enough to believe it. Michael, your dress is wrinkled. Your makeup is smudged. There's a bruise forming on your neck." His voice cracked. "What did you do, Sarah? What did you let him do to you?" The question hung in the air like a guillotine. Sarah's hand instinctively moved to her neck, feeling the tender spot where Richard had pressed too hard with his mouth despite her protests. She'd been so focused on getting home she hadn't even checked a mirror. "It's not what you think." "Then tell me what it is." Michael's shout echoed through the apartment. "Tell me the truth for once. Tell me you didn't go to that man's hotel room. Tell me you didn't let him touch you while I sat here worried sick, calling you over and over." Sarah's legs gave out. She sank onto the arm of the couch, her carefully constructed world crumbling around her. We didn't. I just kissed him. He wanted more, but I said no. I swear, Michael, I said no." The silence that followed was worse than any accusation. Michael stood there, his face cycling through disbelief, disgust, and finally, devastating heartbreak. "You kissed him. You kissed your boss. For a promotion. It wasn't like that. Then what was it like, Sarah? Explain it to me. Make me understand how the woman I married, the woman I've loved for 7 years, ended up in another man's hotel room." His voice dropped to barely above a whisper. "Make me understand how you looked me in the eye tonight and chose him over me." Sarah's tears came in choking sobs. "I was scared. He said he'd take away the promotion, that he'd ruin my career. I didn't know what to do. You could have said no." Michael's anger erupted again. "You could have walked away. You could have come home to me, and we would have figured it out together. But instead you went to him. You let him touch you. You kissed him back. I did say no. Eventually? Michael's laugh was hollow. "Jesus Christ, Sarah, do you even hear yourself? You're talking about eventually stopping like it's some kind of victory." He turned away, running his hands through his hair in a gesture of complete frustration. When he turned back, his expression had changed to something worse than anger. Resignation. "I can't do this anymore," he said quietly. "I can't watch you destroy yourself for a job that's turning you into someone I don't recognize. Someone who lies. Someone who betrays the people who love them. Please, Michael, I made a mistake. A terrible mistake. But I love you. I love you more than any job, do you? Michael's question cut like a knife. Because tonight, when you had to choose between your husband and your boss, you chose him. You chose a promotion over our marriage, over your integrity, over everything we built together. Sarah reached for him, but he stepped back, his retreat more painful than any blow. I'll fix this. I'll quit. I'll report him to HR. It's too late. Michael's voice was steady now, filled with a grief that seemed to age him years and moments. I've been watching you slip away for months, making excuses for you, telling myself you were just stressed, just ambitious. But tonight showed me the truth. You're willing to compromise everything for success, including us. That's not true. Sarah stood up, desperation making her voice shrill. I got confused. He manipulated me. I see that now. Please just give me a chance to make this right. How, Sarah? How do you make this right? How do I ever trust you again? Every time you work late, every time you go to a company event, I'll wonder if you're with him, if you're letting him touch you, if you're choosing your career over me again. Michael's shoulders sagged. I can't live like that. You can't ask me to. The next morning, Sarah woke alone in their bed. She'd cried herself to sleep around 4 a.m., and Michael had spent the night on the couch. When she emerged, puffy-eyed and desperate, he was already dressed, a duffel bag packed by the door. Where are you going? My brother's place. For a while. We both need space to think. Michael's voice was carefully neutral, as if emotion had burned him out completely. Michael, please don't leave. We can work through this, can we? He finally looked at her, really looked at her. And Sarah saw that the love in his eyes had been replaced with something unbearable. Pity. Sarah, you need to figure out who you want to be. The person you were when I married you, or this new version who'll do anything for status. I can't make that choice for you. I choose you. I choose us. Then prove it. Go to HR, report Richard. Quit if you have to. Show me that your marriage means more than a title. Michael picked up his bag. But do it because you want to, not because I'm asking. Because if you can't do that, if you can't choose integrity on your own, then we're already over. The door closed behind him with a gentle click that sounded like a gunshot. Sarah stood in the empty apartment, surrounded by the life they'd built together, and felt the full weight of her choices crushing down on her. Her phone buzzed. Richard, great work last night. Stop by my office at 9 a.m. Monday. We have a lot to discuss about your new position. Can't wait to continue our mentorship. Sarah stared at the message, bile rising in her throat. This was her reward. This was what she'd traded her marriage for. The attention of a predator who saw her as a conquest, not a colleague. A promotion built on coercion and shame. She had 2 days to decide who she wanted to be. Monday morning arrived with cruel sunshine. Sarah sat in her car outside Velocity Corp's glass tower, her finger hovering over her phone's dial pad. HR's number was ready, so was her resignation letter. Drafted and redrafted a dozen times over the weekend in the hollow silence of her apartment. Michael hadn't called, hadn't texted. The void where his presence used to be felt like a physical wound. Sarah had spent 48 hours oscillating between justification and self-loathing. She'd rehearsed conversations with Richard, with HR, with Michael. She'd imagined walking away with her dignity intact. She'd also imagined the director's office, the salary, the vindication of success, the fantasy that she could somehow have both. The promotion and her husband's forgiveness had died somewhere around 3 a.m. Sunday night. Now, in the harsh light of Monday morning, she had to choose. Her phone rang. Michael's name lit up the screen and her heart leaped. Michael, don't talk. Just listen. His voice was tired but firm. I've been thinking all weekend about us. About what you said about being scared and manipulated. And I want to believe you, Sarah. God, I want to believe that the woman I married is still in there somewhere. She is. I promise. Then prove it. Right now. Today. Before you go into that building, decide what matters more. Your integrity or your title. Because I can't do this anymore. I can't watch you sacrifice your soul for a man who doesn't respect you, and a company that enabled his behavior for years. Sarah's breath caught. What are you saying? I'm saying I love you. I've always loved you. But I won't be married to someone who compromises their values for corporate advancement. So you choose, Sarah. Today. Report him, walk away from that toxic environment and come home to me. Or go to his office, accept whatever degrading terms he set, and when you come home tonight, I'll be gone. His voice broke slightly. For good this time. The line went dead. Sarah sat staring at her phone, her entire future condensed into the next 60 seconds of decision. She looked up at the building where she'd spent 6 years climbing, scratching, fighting for recognition. The director position was up there, 20th floor corner office. Everything she'd told herself she wanted. Everything she'd convinced herself she needed to prove her worth. And in her apartment across town was a man who'd loved her unconditionally, who'd supported her ambitions without asking her to compromise herself, who'd seen her at her worst and stayed anyway, until she'd given him a reason to leave. Sarah pulled out her laptop and opened her email. Her hands shook as she typed, but with each word, clarity came into sharper focus. To hrvelocitycorp.com, CC, board of velocitycorp.com, subject, formal complaint and immediate resignation. Dear Human Resources, I am writing to file a formal complaint against Richard Blackwood for sexual harassment, coercion, and abuse of power. Over the past 3 years, Mr. Blackwood has engaged in progressively inappropriate behavior, including unwanted physical contact, quid pro quo advancement offers, and explicit threats regarding my employment should I refuse his advances. On Friday, October 29th, Mr. Blackwood invited me to his hotel suite under the pretense of discussing my promotion. When I arrived, he made it clear that the promotion was contingent upon sexual favors. He used his position of power to coerce me into compromising situations and threatened to destroy my career if I refused. I take full responsibility for not reporting this behavior sooner. I was afraid of losing my job, of not being believed, of being labeled as difficult or overly sensitive. But my silence enabled his predatory behavior, and I cannot carry that weight anymore. Effective immediately, I am resigning from my position at Velocity Corp. I cannot, in good conscience, accept a promotion obtained through coercion and abuse of power. I am willing to cooperate fully with any investigation and will provide detailed accounts and documentation of Mr. Blackwood's behavior. I am also providing this information to the board of directors, as Mr. Blackwood's actions represent a massive liability to this company and indicate a systemic failure in oversight and accountability. Sincerely, Sarah Chen. Sarah hit send before she could second-guess herself. Then she forwarded the email to her personal account, took screenshots, and drove away from Velocity Corp for the last time. The apartment felt different when she walked in at 9:30 a.m., not empty, but expectant, as if holding its breath. Sarah changed out of her business clothes and into jeans and a sweater. She washed off her makeup. She looked at herself in the mirror and for the first time in months recognized the woman staring back. She called Michael. I did it. I reported him. I quit. I chose us. The pause on the other end lasted an eternity. Then, I'm coming home. The weeks that followed were not easy. Velocity Corp launched an investigation that revealed Richard had harassed at least 5 other women over 10 years. He was fired, and the company settled out of court to avoid publicity. Sarah's name was kept confidential, but the industry whisper network meant job hunting became complicated. Potential employers saw her gap in employment and asked careful questions. Money got tight. They couldn't buy the house they'd wanted. Sarah took freelance consulting work, rebuilding her reputation and her career on her own terms. Some days were harder than others. Some days she wondered if she'd made the right choice, if she'd sacrificed too much. But every night Michael came home to her. They talked. They rebuilt trust brick by painful brick. They went to marriage counseling and learned to communicate about ambition, boundaries, and the difference between healthy striving and destructive obsession. 3 months after her resignation, on a quiet Tuesday evening, Michael handed Sarah a small box. Inside was a necklace, a simple silver compass. So you always know how to find your way home, he said softly. Sarah clutched the necklace, tears streaming down her face. Not tears of regret for what she'd lost, but tears of gratitude for what she'd saved. 6 months later, Sarah started her own consulting firm. She built it with integrity, hired talented people regardless of gender, and created a culture where advancement never came with degrading price tags. Her first major client praised her work and referred 3 others. Success came slowly, but it was clean. It was hers. On the 1-year anniversary of that horrible night at the hotel, Sarah and Michael stood in the kitchen of a modest house they'd finally been able to afford. Not the mansion they'd once dreamed of, but something better. A home built on trust, honesty, and love that had survived being tested. Do you regret it? Michael asked, reading her mind as he often did now. Giving up the director position, Sarah looked at the compass necklace she wore every day, then at her husband's face. Older, wiser, but with that same gentle love in his eyes that had captured her heart years ago. I regret who I became in pursuit of it, she said honestly. But leaving? Reporting him? Choosing us? Never. She took his hand. You were right. I was trading loyalty for a title. And no title is worth losing yourself, or losing the person who actually sees you. Michael pulled her close. We both lost our way for a while. But we found our way back. In Sarah's office, framed and mounted beside her business license, was a handwritten note. Not the angry letter Michael had threatened, but something he'd written months later, after forgiveness and healing had begun. You traded a title for something better. Your integrity. That took more courage than any promotion could measure. I'm proud of you. I've always been proud of you. Welcome home. Sarah read it every morning before starting work. A reminder that the truest measure of success isn't the title on your business card or the corner office with a view. It's being able to look at yourself in the mirror and recognize the person staring back. It's building something meaningful without compromising who you are. It's understanding that some prices are too high to pay, and some lines should never be crossed, and most importantly, it's knowing that the people who truly love you will never ask you to sacrifice your soul for their approval. The promotion had cost Sarah everything, her peace, her marriage's foundation, her self-respect. But walking away from it, choosing integrity over ambition, had given her something far more valuable, herself. And that was a treasure no title could ever match.